Hey, this is Hiro Yamamoto from Truly, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Unteed, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers, like our Facebook page, or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Hiro Yamamoto from Truly and Stereo Donkey, and formerly of Soundgarden.
Promoting Truly's upcoming tour in March and his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
So that's super exciting, and they got some new, hopefully some new music in the works for next year.
Yeah, maybe promising a full album, maybe? Fingers crossed. Let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Hiro, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Unteed.
Hiro, thanks for joining us tonight.
All right, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
We're so excited to have you. So, as you well know, we interviewed Robert last week, so we're so geeked to have you on tonight. Let's get right into this. Truly has signed on with a worldwide entertainment group. Can you talk a little bit more about this new partnership with the new management and Dave Laurie?
Yeah, it's been a kind of a serendipitous few months of finding, first for us, kind of legal representation to kind of hunt down ownership of Fast Stories from Kid Coma. Mm-hmm. And once we got legal representation, that kind of led us to this management company. Dave Laurie and Sandy Rizzo are kind of the two top people leading us. And they've both got lots of experience, but also are really kind of showing us, like, this kind of a full suite of how we can be helped by management. Something we've had managers before, but never with this kind of in-depth and kind of universal approach we're getting. And it's just, for me and Robert, it's really exciting. It's got us really inspired to be, working on new material and excited to be bringing the old stuff out.
Excellent.
Well, yeah, just talk a little bit more about that in today's climate, with the labels not what they once were. You got to do more self-promotion, and it's great that you have the management company. Can you talk a little bit about the band's approach to marketing?
Yeah, well, part of our thing is it's been the Fast Stories from Kid Coma has been out of print for many years, probably almost 30. It's 30 years old, so it's been out of print since it was first released. So for us, it's that's kind of our seminal album and kind of what put us on the map, and we've been trying to get rights to get that back out there. So just having somebody to first negotiate with us to try to find a way to get this thing back out on the streets, but also kind of putting together a whole team of to kind of bring us back to light, because we've been kind of because of the legal issues, we've been kind of struggling to get ourselves back on our feet, and so this is really helpful to us.
Well, pardon my ignorance on the business side of things here, but when it comes to you, Robert, Mark, you're shopping around for a management. Now, you said you've had managers before, but you went shopping around for a management group, a team to represent you. Can you talk about going out and trying to take on something like this, in opposed to just hiring just like a manager on a whim type of thing?
Well, I mean, everybody needs management of some sort, right?
Right.
And I think Truly was in a spot where we were doing, Robert was doing a lot of the managing all on his own, and it's a huge task of keeping websites going, keeping up with contacts, all that kind of stuff. But for him, it's just been his personal goal of keeping this stuff moving. And it's not something that I have not been adept at keeping up with that kind of stuff. And so, for Robert, I think this is giving us a team to work with to help us, make sure we're covering the right bases, and then that we can start focus on actually writing music and working on, being creative again, instead of working on all the nuts and bolts of like, hey, we need to get T-shirts together, right, and we got to get logos designed, So a lot of the stuff, and I know bands all over the world do this, and it's not a big deal. But I mean, these are just the little nuts and bolts things that go into making it all work. Making sure your social media is rolling, and every little bit of stuff that you've got to keep going.
Do you feel, in this modern day of the music business, with the social medias and all the other things that are going on right now, and you see so many independent artists that are not signed, that were once signed to big labels before, and it's more of a DIY type thing. Do you think working with a management group is more advantageous for artists now, when it seems like, hey, you don't have a big label backing you up any longer?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's making a world of difference. Just because, for us, we've had managers who weren't as big, and so it just seems like having just kind of that presence of somebody who carries some weight with the people in the industry, and that's the thing, is like, this is still a music industry, and there's a lot of behind the scenes people who make this all work.
Yeah, very good.
And having the tie into them is really the key, and having an advocate in that respect is one of the keys for bands for their success. And just marrying that, your manager marrying that with the goals of the band, that's kind of that's essential to making things roll forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the re-release of Feeling You Up, 1997? I think it was your second album. We talked a little bit with Rob. I asked him about Repulsion. It was a track that I liked a lot. Found out that was a leftover cut from Fast Stories. Can you talk a little bit about that album and your contribution?
Yeah. This is very funny. I had to open up Wikipedia and kind of look myself because it's been so long. No, but and some of that, like you say, the song Repulsion was from some outtakes that we were doing at the time for the Fast Stories record. So it is kind of a compendium of songs, whereas Fast Stories was more of like kind of songs that were written with a cohesive theme.
Yeah.
Feeling You Up was kind of more of an approach at like, hey, we've got songs here and there, and let's try to put them together and still make it cohesive in a way. Repulsion's an interesting song. I listen to that song now, and I sometimes I say to myself, man, that is just such an aggressive tone to the bass playing. It scares me sometimes. So it's interesting to listen to your playing, to my own playing, for me to listen to it this many years later. Because, it brings back just kind of the memories of where we were in the studio, and just kind of even just the smells and the lighting and that kind of stuff. But also, just listening to some of the wild kind of aggressiveness that we were putting out at that time is interesting. Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of interesting to go back and look and kind of try to relive the emotions that it took to make the music, right?
Yeah.
Well, when I asked Robert about Air Raid, it took me back to that David Bowie, Iggy Pop, kind of sound to it. And when I said that to Robert, he kind of paused for a second. He goes, "Yeah, I could kind of see that." Am I totally off kilter when I said it gives me that kind of vibe when I listen to Air Raid?
Well, it's interesting that you would say that. More just because I don't think we were approaching it in any way like that. But I mean, those are some influences of us at the time. So that, to me, that's the interesting thing, is that not that necessarily that's what we were trying to do or whatever, but those are, some real big influences on us, especially at that time. So somehow something must have transformed through our music, in all music, nothing comes out of nowhere, right? We're all copying somebody, or just reinterpreting, right? I mean, it's all just like what comes out of you after listening to what you've heard, right? And so yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, as a musician, do you ever get amazed that like you can still come up with new stuff, that there is songs that haven't been written?
Well, no, at a certain point I thought so, but now I'm just like, there's just so much out there and so many different approaches that it really is about living with what you get and learning how to pursue and critique yourself and be positive and move forward. Because, songwriting is one of those things where you're constantly going like, is that okay? Is this, and so the self-critiquing thing can be limiting. So, so part of it is getting past the self-critiquing and just saying, hey, this is just what we do. This is how we sound. And not get too involved in that, and just let it flow out. So there are too many approaches, but one is just let it all flow out. The other is to go for a certain sound, right? And we've done both, definitely. And then that to me is also another fun approach to music, is how you actually approach the songwriting, the kind of freedom you give yourself, or what the approach is you're looking for. So I don't know.
We'd asked Robert about, when going into the studio, when you're creating new music and when you're trying to finish a song, how hard is it for you, the bass player, to say, okay, I'm done. I don't want to tinker with it anymore. Or do you always just feel like it's always incomplete in your ears?
Bass playing is a lot easier to me than guitar and keys and vocals, because as a bass player, it gets done earlier and more stuff gets layered on later. And so for me, it's about getting the essentials in there and then being comfortable, like, hey, that is the shape of the song. What we've got here with the bass and drums and the raw tracks it's really, you're making a shape to allow the rest of it to happen. So for me, I mean, obviously there are things I wish I'd played differently, or, in time you go back like, wow, that was a weird approach. Why did I do that? But at the same time, I've done some stuff I still can't even do. I go like, what was I doing? I still don't know how I did that. And, but it's really about the completeness. I feel like, you lay something down, and with bass, you're not usually the final edit. You're way early. So it's about being comfortable with the foundation you've laid down. And so once that's down, you're kind of done. And it's like, it is a little odd as a bass player, because you see all the stuff that happens that, taking a day or two to get drum sounds, or, all the layering and the work that goes into getting distinct sounds. And as a bass player, it usually doesn't last that long. An hour or 50 minutes or whatever, and we're ready to roll. So it is kind of, it's comical in a way, but there is a lot of, like, to me, we mess with the texture of the bass. I mean, a lot of my bass, a lot of people go like, why is it so muffled sounding? Because I actually like it to not stand out as much, things like that. I like it to be kind of buried in part of the layer and less the attack. And whatever.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could just go on and on about the nuts and bolts of the studio stuff, but I think it's really important that we move on to. Truly will be going out on tour this March. Can you give our listeners an insight to the tour schematics, regionally? Where can your fans, our listeners, where can we find you guys out on tour this March?
Yeah, what we're looking at right now is kind of to do a couple of regional things, like a West Coast side, hopefully the Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, hopefully down into San Diego even. And then we're going to do kind of the Midwest to the East Coast, so like a Nashville, Chicago, probably through Detroit and over to the New York and Baltimore, and do an East Coast thing. Probably, like a 2 to 3 week setup for those. And then that's kind of hoping that we get something bigger going on for the summer and then head back out again. So, but excited to kind of be going out and bring that back out to people,
Yeah, I mean, this is exciting times.
It's been a few years.
Yeah. Well, I guess talk a little bit about your setup when you go out on tour. Do you take just your favorite bass, or do you have more than one that you take with you, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, with Truly, it's usually 2 basses. Fender Jazz bass is kind of my thing, and so 2 basses, because Truly's got a lot of D tunings and alternate tunings. Robert uses a variety of tunings, so for me it's good to have 2. And but my setup's pretty simple, just Fender Jazz bass and off we go.
Well, we've talked to many artists, when they're going out on tour, and the set list topic always comes up, and with you and Robert and the music that you guys have put together, and I find it hard to believe that somebody hasn't requested for you guys to play, Kid Coma from front to back and back to front or whatever. But how does it work for you guys when it comes to putting the set list together come this March? Have you put any thought into it so far?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to do something like to play the whole album at some point, maybe someday, But what we do when we go out on tour, and what we have done in the past going out on tour, is we do kind of block our songs together based on the guitar tunings, just so there's a flow to the set, timing wise. We're not retuning and doing this kind of stuff. So, so there's a definite kind of, we have a bunch of different sets of blocks of songs and different tunings that we kind of run through, and we just kind of work off of that as our rotation kind of thing.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah. Take it a little bit back to 1991 when you guys got started with Heart and Lungs EP. That opening track was used in the Singles movie. That was a big inspiration for me, anyways. Introducing to, I had heard the Seattle sound on the radio, but that really. The Deep Six compilation and Singles, that's where it really started hitting home and diving into some of these other bands. But can you talk a little bit about, around that time, Truly getting started and how it all came about?
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up that song in particular, because kind of put us on the map, but it's also, that is around the time that I actually joined Truly, and, Heart and Lungs is actually a song that I did not play on. It's recorded by Chris Quinn, was playing bass at the time. And so it's an interesting time, because like Seattle was kind of the hotbed of the single soundtrack. It was kind of this hotbed of music at that point. And Truly was forming, and they had formed with Chris Quinn playing bass and Robert on guitar as a 3-piece, and they were looking to, Chris was essentially a guitar player playing bass, and he wanted to move to guitar, and Robert, the music kind of lended itself to needing more than one guitar. So that's when I was approached and joined the band. And from there on, I mean, that's where Truly went from there. But that single being on the record, and just, I love where it's at in the movie. Just kind of a cool scene, turning up the radio in the car. Just and just a fun for us, for people from Seattle. It's just kind of a fun movie, because like it's like this is us. This is our people.
Exactly.
And it's funny because because Matt Dillon's a caricature of of the Seattle scene, right?
Yeah.
And it's a timepiece. So and definitely a lot of fun. A great movie.
Well, as we're on this subject, take us back to the early days of the Seattle music scene. You were in a local band called The Altered. The band flourished regionally. Talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, well, The Altered was really kind of. This is early, and the reason we're in this is just because I'm thinking about my career. Like, truly is what I'm in today. And what's happening today, but we're going to be talking a little bit of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I'm just looking back at my life and where did it start? It started with the band The Altered, Billy Warner, Milton Garrison. We were just a 3-piece band. We eventually had a singer, Tammy Lofton, but we never really recorded any records, but we were part of the early Seattle scene, the all-ages club, the Metropolis, which kind of spawned kind of what became all the music coming out. But it wasn't grunge then. It was new wave. It was punk. It was a little bit of everything. And it was just ideas. It was really about ideas floating around. And so for me, that was the essence of kind of the incubator those days. We weren't that great a band, but we were kind of a favorite of the club owner, Hugo. And so we got some great shows. We opened up for the Wipers, the Violent Femmes. We just, and it just gave me exposure. That's what really gave me exposure to be like, God, I can be in a band. I really didn't think that was something actually that, for me being an Asian kid, like, wow, I'm actually on stage playing rock and roll in front of these people, So for me, that was a big step, just in confidence building and just, who I am as a human, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very cool. Well, yeah, that Metropolis venue is iconic for, getting the start for a lot of the what would come on to be the grunge scene. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other venues? The ones I've heard of, the Crocodile Cafe and the Moore Theater. Is there any other venues that you've played at?
Well, for us, the early days was all ages shows because actually when I was at that time, I was not old enough to go into a bar. I was less than 21 or just turned 21. So for us, it was really, we kind of looked at bar bands, people who played in bars as like, man, like why would you want to do that? Like all the fun's here at these all ages shows. So we were always chasing all ages venues, and in Seattle at the time, the fire department and the city council were always chasing those all ages venues, trying to shut them down because punk rock was going to destroy America's youth, And so part of that was this kind of, when the Metropolis closed, there was actually a couple of years there where things were kind of floating from different Masons halls, Eagles auditoriums. There were just shows popping up everywhere. What ended up being one of the more established places was a place called the Guerrilla Gardens, which was in the what we call the International District, or the Seattle's Chinatown, and it was run by a Chinese promoter, and he really didn't care anything about music. He just had this old rundown theater that he was like, well, these stupid punk rock kids come down here and pay money for this fucking loud shit that I don't even like. And so the Guerrilla Gardens was another place that, became, that was kind of where Soundgarden cut its teeth. And it really was not a glorious venue. It was an empty movie theater with 2 separate stages on, it was a dual theater, and it was basically an empty room with no artwork, no decor. It was just an empty room to play music in.
And those are the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, very unglorious, believe me.
Well, I'm going to take it back to the altered a little bit because, in the Seattle, you got all the different family trees of the various bands that were around. Can you talk a little bit about like some of the early bands before they became famous?
What some of the other bands at this time that became something?
Well, that you were playing with, like either opening for or around, or
there's
maybe going
the
to see.
Mr. Ep and the Calculations. They became, that was Mark and the Mudhoney folks came from there. The U-Men were probably the biggest band of our genre, at the time. They were probably the biggest draw or whatever. That like they had a big following. There's a band called Red Mask. Boy, but some of the other bands that we were into, like they were kind of a little older than us, and they never went anywhere. Like they were the Three Swimmers. The band we thought were the coolest was the Blackouts, and the drummer in that band was in Ministry. Isn't that right? Oh wow! God, I'm so old. I'm forgetting names. Bill Rieflin.
Bill Rieflin. Yep.
Amazing drummer. I mean, and so these are the musicians that, like, for us, me and Kim especially, we would go to these shows and just watch different musicians go, oh wow, look at that. I mean, in awe, like, back then, I mean, in awe of different musicians and just seeing what we could do, what they could do, or kind of, just like being inspired. That was where inspiration came from. Anyway, yeah.
For sure.
Super cool.
Well, let's talk something really impressive here. This November, you along with the rest of the members of Soundgarden will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Talk about the opportunity of being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and what other festivities does the hall have for you guys except for that one glorious night?
Well, I think it is the glorious night.
Yeah.
And, but what an honor for me, especially because, as the early member of Soundgarden, those guys did all the work to get them to this point. But also just for me, Soundgarden is such a bigger thing than what I left it with as. And, but, I know that the reason I'm in it is not because of me. I'm obviously a really important part of the early Soundgarden, but, Chris Cornell, that talent, that voice, the looks, that is what propels you into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And not that we weren't, not that the rest of the band aren't amazing musicians and do amazing things to do it, but like it's just I look at the star power of somebody like Chris, and it's just that's a lot of stuff in one person. That's all I can say.
Yeah, very good.
God rest his soul.
Absolutely.
But the Soundgarden, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for me has been part of a longer story. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was inducted into the Asian Hall of Fame, and that kind of piqued me into like, who am I? What am I? Where am I? How did I get here? And realizing like, I'm an Asian rock and roll musician. How many of us are there? And so these recognitions for things are at a certain point you're kind of, I have to laugh and go like, really, like you're recognizing me. It's kind of, I mean, the humble part of me is kind of says, well, it's kind of comical that you're recognizing me. But on the other, I'm very humbled and honored to be recognized. But I also see that there is a message, for me to show people, hey, as an Asian person, you can succeed and you can be in this platform that's considered not part of you. And obviously for me, it was a bigger step at those times because, acceptance of Asian people wasn't as big when I was younger. And just to see the world moving forward, we hope. I mean, these are tough times. I'm watching where we're at. I just can't believe how we are treating immigrants in our own country. I'm an immigrant. And I know immigrants build this country, have built this country, continue to make this country the great place it is. This country is nothing without immigrants. And it's sad for me to watch where we're headed as a country. So, so for me, it's not only the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is great. It's for me, it's a laugh because I feel like somebody's actually saying to me, well, Hiro Yamamoto, you are actually a rock and roll musician. You are a star. It's a vindication, which I didn't think was possible when I was a kid. I didn't think that a person with a name like Hiro Yamamoto could be considered a card-carrying member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It's so cool.
Just that, you know. And it just goes to, you know, I'm a lucky person. You know, as shitty as things are in this country right now, I'm very proud to be an American because it gives us this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't sell yourself short because Ultra Mega OK and Louder Than Love are iconic. I mean,
exactly.
Eric and I still.
Oh yeah, I know.
We'll get Louder Than Love out and play it.
I'm trying to be humble so I don't seem like a big-headed ego star. But
I love it.
You know.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what fans, you know, some might not know that when you left Soundgarden in 1999, you went back to school. You went and got your master's degree in physical chemistry. Can you talk a little bit about that decision was it important to you to continue your education?
Well, I mean, it was a thing. I had never gone to college out of high school, kind of just moseyed across the country and worked in bike shops and eventually started Soundgarden with Kim. So at that point in my life, I was like, what am I going to do? There's other things, and this is my life is like, there's so many things I want to do in the world. And so just trying to go into college and studying chemistry was really interesting to me. It was this bridge of, I don't know, to me, when you're studying things like quantum mechanics and you're doing calculations that Einstein and Heisenberg did, and you look at the math and the beauty of the mathematics. I know this sounds really geeky, but you know what I mean? You feel like you're walking in the steps of giants. You might as well be playing music with John Coltrane and Miles Davis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because giant steps is the way I look at it. You're seeing. It's weird because you can see the concepts that affect our life today that are so complex but so simple. And to me, it's amazing. Actually, a funny story on this, and I know this is a whole sidelight, but, you know, when we were recording, it was Feeling You Up. We were working with this guy, Andy Pullman. He was a kid who was in high school. He was actually homeschooled at the time, and he was, you know, helping us do drum loops and stuff like that. And I was in school at the time, and I was talking to him exactly about that kind of stuff. You know, like, hey, when you do this math and you see these things, you understand, like, this is where Newton figured out the calculus, and you see the steps it took, and you see how his brain was working. And that kid ended up becoming a physics professor that met us out on tour. He was teaching at I think at SUNY New York or something like that. And so for me, it's like, this is the kind of thing that your life touches.
Yeah. Not
not even with music, but just the ideas that people have. Anyway, that's a goofy side story.
Some of our listeners might not know about your surf trio, Stereo Donkey. Can you talk a little bit more? You guys have one EP, came out in about 2018, and a couple more singles as recent as 21. Can you talk a little bit about that band and how it came about?
Yeah, Stereo Donkey started off as kind of just a fun experiment. There was a Halloween party where, a bunch of different musicians were kind of paired up and, doing different cover songs. And, so I got involved in that. Our song was Planet Spectra. But just playing kind of a surf-inspired song kind of got us together. My wife, Kate, was with us at one of the rehearsals and just kind of said, like, God, you guys, this is fun. You guys should start a surf band. That's where it started. But no, it's a trio, no vocals, more of a punky surf band because, we don't really follow the surf genre to a T because I cannot play bass like a regular surf player. I'm a little too wild, play too many notes. And So it's kind of more of a punk surf band, but a lot of fun. We play mostly locally around the Seattle area. Bellingham, we're located in Bellingham, where I live. So yeah, a lot of fun. We're looking to kind of do more too, but nothing on the scale of what Truly's got coming at us.
Oh, cool, fantastic. So, kind of a little bit more of a generalized question here. As a teenager growing up, before the grunge thing happened, when we thought of Seattle music, the first thing that pops in your mind was Heart. Yeah. Or it was, as I got a little bit older, it was Queensryche, and then obviously the evolution of the grunge movement hit. But what I've discovered from doing this podcast for so many years now is Seattle truly has been the melting pot of music as far as cross genre all over the place, and we've interviewed R&B artists from Seattle, we've heavy metal artists, mainstream artists, you name it, we've done it. But for you, as your origins of a musician from the beginnings till now, even as a teenage kid until now, can you talk a little bit more about the evolution of the Seattle music scene as far as it being a cross genre type of area, a hotbed of, hey, we're just out of grunge, we're R&B, we're hip hop, we're pop. Talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you bring that up because Seattle's where Quincy Jones came from. Seattle. I mean, don't forget Jimi Hendrix either.
Right.
And this goes back to an old story of mine. Is when I before Soundgarden, I had a job working, or actually during the time of Soundgarden, when Soundgarden was first starting out, I worked for the Seattle Parks Department, and I worked with the guy there. His name was Clarence Williams, and he was in his 60s at the time, but he was an old jazz balladeer, jazz singer. He'd come out through the South, through the Chitlin circuit, as they call it, but he had been in Seattle for a good long time, and he used to play the jazz, like kind of the crooner jazz clubs. He was kind of a Joe Williams kind of singer, and I didn't even understand at the time that kind of music. I was like, oh yeah, like James Brown and the Screamers and blues, but to him blues was kind of the mellow jazz blues. And it was a genre of music I never even knew about at the time. And we got together, we played together, and I went to see him perform a few times. And just for me to see the different kinds of music there are, and that is something I wouldn't really pursue to go see, but just to see there's so much besides rock and roll going on in Seattle.
Oh, very good.
Very cool. I want to bring it back to Truly a little bit. In 2020, was it 21? You guys had the new single "Wheels on Fire" and "No One Remembering the Game." We talked to Robert, and he talked about hinted at some new singles coming. When can we expect the next single?
Yeah, we're working on new material. We've got some older stuff that's in the can that we want to still bring to the light of day. Look for us in the next year. Hopefully 2026, we'll start getting some material rolling and start creating some excitement again. Both Robert and I are really excited. We got Mark Pickrell's really getting ready to start writing some songs too, so we're really ready to get going here.
All right. Awesome. All right, got one last question for you, then we're going to leave you alone for the evening. And modern technology, more than ever, we're seeing people creating music in their homes that are really not even musicians. They're doing it on a laptop or what have you, and they're putting it up on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and it becomes a top 20 hit of some sorts or whatever. But for you, the person that's put his blood, sweat, and tears into his music as an artist, is that good for music to have these, I guess, maybe keyboard warriors back there creating music, which they really don't even know what they're doing except for a software program? Talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, great question. Well, I'll say this. I am intimidated by it and offended, but at the same time, I realize that's how music's being made today. My kid does that. This is how my kid writes music. Cool. And we've done stuff today. I've done stuff with my kid, Yoshi, and it's interesting to me, but you still have to be a songwriter, is what I'm understanding. You still have to be able to manipulate and understand where things are going and what you still have to understand music, but it makes it easier to understand bigger portions of music at a time with like the new digital age. It's like it's to perfect one instrument is really difficult, but when you go into the digital age, you're perfecting the sound of many instrument voices coming together. So it's just a different way of playing music. We better get used to it.
I don't want to.
But I don't think that like the actual musician will ever go away, because there is something really special about the physical aspect of an instrument and the interaction of the human and the instrument. So at the same time, I'm really intimidated by AI, and like I've done songs with my kid where like, okay, I'm taking on the AI bass player, dude. Like, I'm going at it, and you know what I mean. And it's funny because I'm like, yeah, some guy actually played that, like, and they AI'd it together, but that dude's a pretty fucking good player. But you know what I mean. But it still can never have the soul that you give it,
right?
Like as a human, even though you might be the way shittier player than that AI bass player. Not smooth at all and just kind of clunking your way through it. It's still not going to have the same soul that you can give it as your own human self. So power to us humans, believe me. But I do think that this is just the way music is created now. I've learned actually a lot looking at because I don't read music very well, but I realize that when you look at the MIDI whatever script, that's basically sheet music, but it's all written in little lines and dots on a big on a computer screen. But that's sheet music. I mean, it really is. That you can write a symphony with that stuff. So it's just a new format, just a different way of looking at it.
With this technology coming in, we don't really see the brilliant mistakes in this proper studio any longer. Do you kind of miss that? Like, hey, it's become overly polished.
Oh yeah, I love mistakes. I mean, I don't go back and listen to the records I'm on and listen to them carefully. You'll find them. You know what I mean? That's the beauty to me. That's the beauty of music, is the trying. Yeah. Actually, Stereo Donkey's kind of that way, and in that we would attack things like, hey, can we actually play this fast? And it's like we're on the verge of falling apart half the time. And part of that inaccuracy is the strenuousness, or is that's how you portray. That's how you portray it to the fans. Like, yeah, they think we're going to fall. It's like going to a boxing match. You're waiting for something bad to happen. And so that's kind of the fun. To me, that's part of the fun of music, is like, what's going on here? How do they keep that together, right?
Exactly.
Whatever, there's all sorts of ways of approaching music. One is to just try to keep it together.
Yeah. I wanted to interject one thing before we let you go. Is a few years ago, I had the chance to interview Steve Stevens of Billy Idol. And he had a really interesting quote at the end of the interview. He said, every morning I wake up and I have a cup of coffee and I stare at one of my guitars and I ask my guitar, what are you going to teach me today? Do you have that kind of approach with your bass?
Well, I understand that approach. Yeah, sometimes I like to just pick it up and see where it goes. Yeah. That's the beauty of music. Yeah,
fair enough.
Every day is a different approach. That's the other amazing things. Like, you can approach it from a different attitude every day.
Excellent. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off for this interview that we forgot to plug or promote?
No, thanks a lot. Really been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, this is how things are going to work out. Jeff, the editing wizard, will get everything edited. And once it gets all finished, I will text you the link, and then we'll put it up on all of our socials. And if you could do the same thing on your end, that'd be fantastic.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah. Well, Eric, Jeff, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much
for joining us tonight. And congratulations on your inductee into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Awesome.
If you were satisfied with the process, we'd love to get into the nuts and bolts of the Soundgarden studio stuff. If you would ever have any interest in doing that, we'd love to have the stories behind it.
Okay. Let's keep talking, okay?
Fantastic. Hiro, thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll be in touch.
All right.
All right, man.
Excellent.
Take care.
You have a great night, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their